I am so freaking excited for my next guest. Like, what the hell? He could have been family of the great family Robinson of the 1960s. You know, adventurous as fuck. Simon and Garfunkel. They wrote a song about Mrs. Robinson. He could be the son. Who knows? Ladies and gentlemen, Adam fucking Robinson. Thank you so much to be a guest, man. Thank you so freaking much.
Yeah, thanks, Timmy. You know, believe it or not, I am the son of Mrs. Robinson.
Oh my God! Really?
Can you believe it?
God damn! So you got your mother's.
Maybe not the one and only Mrs. Robinson, but I am definitely the son of Mrs. Robinson.
You've got your mother's last name.
What's that?
Yeah. You've got your mother's last name.
Well, I mean, my mother took my father's last name.
Oh, okay. That's cheating, but okay, we'll get there. Okay,
exactly.
Okay, perfect, man. First of all, like, you know, I'm gonna try to introduce you a little bit. Like, you've got this Among Us, you know, career as an entrepreneur, as a self-made man, which is amazing. But I think that's why my first question is gonna be like, would you be okay with switching hair?
Switching. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, man.
I'll mail it to you.
Oh, fuck, yeah, it's Belgium. Thanks, man. Do FedEx Express.
Yeah.
No, man, so serious now. So, being an entrepreneur, it's tough, it's hard. What made you be an entrepreneur? Why are you an entrepreneur?
You know, I think, like, kind of when I got to high school, I lived in this, you would say, like, an upper middle class neighborhood growing up, like, kind of like, in America, we have this expression, keeping up with the Joneses, right? Like, people kind of, like, gave a shit about, like, what the houses looked like people lived in and the cars people drove or whatever. And it was always very confusing to me how everyone afforded to live like that. And the people who seemed to be the most relaxed about it were entrepreneurs. And there weren't that many at the time, but, like, there'd be a guy in a huge house with a lot of cars who seemed to have a very relaxed attitude towards it, who was an entrepreneur. And then there was like a step below, which were like which is very different than now in America, but like the orthopedic surgeons were crushing it. You know, they were these like young guys who were in shape, who like loved their jobs and like drove Porsches and everything. And all of that sounded good to me too. But yeah, something about, and it's weird, like a lot of people have these stories, they're like, oh, like I had a lemonade stand, and I'm sure I did that kind of stuff, but like I wasn't like starting businesses in high school. I was kind of playing basketball. I did start one actually. My dad, after I graduated high school, was like, get a job. Don't just, you know, like you're going to college and you're like, don't just sit around the house. So I started a basketball camp, and that was wonderful. I played basketball, and I like walked on to the basketball team in college. So it was like, and it was, here's why it was wonderful. It like shifted. So like my friends were like working at whatever the local restaurants were making, you know, at the time, like $8 an hour or whatever. And like, I did a big camp, but I also did private lessons. And these kids, their parents would, you know, 3 or 4 of them would pay me $25 each for an hour of just like, you know, like just like feeding the ball to them and being like, you know, good shot, like let's do some push-ups or whatever. So I was like working literally like I would work 3 or 4 hours a day, make triple what these other people were making, and the experience of it was so much better. You know? So like it really made me open my mind to like just the possibility that you could like create something for yourself that was like much better than, you know, other things that you could be doing. But then the interesting thing is I got this job at Lehman Brothers.
Wait, let's go back. So
yeah,
you talked about like the comforts and the Hakuna Matata kind of thing that these entrepreneurs were in. This is like a lifestyle thing. Is this because because like finance? I often find that finance is a very superficial why, but there's that it goes way deeper than just that. So how would that translate with you?
So like, I think some things in life you can just feel and you can't put words to them. I could definitely not put words to it in high school. Even throughout my 10 years as a trader at Lehman Brothers. My best friends started Vimeo, the video sharing website, in the first apartment I was living in, and I watched their lives unfold. And I still couldn't put it into words because when you're in the Wall Street world, like you said, it's a superficial value system. To summarize it from my perspective, and I lived it for 10 years, it's like you're young and impressionable. You show up in this world, and your value of a human being in this world, which is your entire life,
It's like
you're spending 12 hours a day there.
make money.
The value
or
of
get
you
the
as a
fuck.
human is the perceived amount of money that you have extracted out of the system for yourself in the last 12 months. If that number is high, everyone respects you. If that number is low, no one respects you. If that number is low 2 years in a row, you're out. So like, it just creates this like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's not all bad. You know, you learn to operate in a very cutthroat environment. Like the prize happens to be money, but like you could set up anything that people were going for, right? Like in the Soviet Union, it was like power, right? Like it was the most cutthroat environment that like really sharpened me up that you could possibly imagine. You know, when I was 28, I got paid $3.2 million, drove a Ferrari, and lived in a townhouse. That's not bad either, right? Like, I haven't made that much money since. I mean, in 1 year, I've sort of, from income, I sold a business. But, you know, it's a weird value system to be part of. And as you suggested, what I now know is that it is much more fulfilling to be building things for me, and I think probably for most people. And that's kind of the word that I use to describe like what I like so much about the game. Like I just know now that I like building, and specifically my greatest affinity. So like I have a business that is 60 people, and I'm starting a new one that's like rolls up into the same company, but it's a totally separate product line, different team, different TAM, different.
Let's go back because we're steering into business in the business side.
Yeah.
So you're there in this cutthroat environment in the Lehman. You're a credit trader on Wall Street. You know, a famous Wall Street. So you're saying yourself it's pretty impressionable. You're making a lot of money. You're feeling high on life. How do you sleep at night?
Great.
So
Fucking
you
wonderful.
don't have like you're just like
No,
fuck
like
yeah,
like
this is
like
life.
like you don't know, like the soldiers in Nazi Germany were in it. They thought they were, you know, serving a higher purpose, right? Like I believe that. I mean, it's just we are so impressionable when you are in a world. That would probably get me canceled right there. I'm sure.
I was like, yeah, man.
Yeah. But like, you're not like. I hate to be the one who like says this, but like when you are in a world that is everything to you, like it is very easy to lose your moral compass when everything. That's my point about that, right? Like,
No, it's there. There's the experiment of Milgram. I don't know if you know it. It's with the shocking.
yeah, exactly. Like that's what I meant. God, I'm fucking worried about that comment now. Anyway, yeah, it is when your whole world believes this thing. I think it is very easy to become that world. It's just reality, you know. Like I don't think every person can. But like there's a few books that were written about like in the Vietnam era, some people would go like Vietnam used the US press as their primary weapon, right? People would go to Vietnam to check it out and they would come back brainwashed. Like they would come back advocates of Vietnam, like, and it was, you know, this is like McCarthyism.
It's like there's a saying, it takes a village to raise a child, you know? Like if you're surrounded with like, it's so like conformism, like there's so many like people are so impressionable, as you say, And there's
Yes.
like this
Some.
tons of elevator experiments where like everyone is in an elevator
Yeah.
with one subject, they turn,
Yeah.
everyone turns, and then
Everyone
the
turns.
one person also turns.
Totally. So in Vietnam, what these guys would do, so they would get put in a prison, a Vietnam prison. They'd come out, and they were like totally different. And the U.S. was afraid of this brainwashing. And what these Vietnam people would do is, and by the way, the conclusion they came to was a third of people are not susceptible at all to this. So like in the elevator experiment, if everyone turned around, they'd just be looking around being like, what? Why did everyone just turn around? A third of people are very susceptible, meaning if everyone turned around in the elevator, they would be they'd be the third one, right? And then there's people in the middle who you can flip, right? So like there's really easy targets, which, kind of like my comment about the soldiers, like I'm sure most of them were just like total yes men, like they just believed in this thing that was happening, whatever. And then there's a third of the people that were like, this is fucking wrong, but like you can't say that in a society like that or you get killed, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a third of people in the middle that were probably just like going about their business, doing their job, and like, sort of probably knew something was wrong, but like, couldn't say anything, right? But like one of the things that these people would do when they show up at these prison camps is they just make them start writing slightly un-American things, right? Like the position the U.S. has taken against Vietnam is not like unilaterally sort of 100% good. Like very subtly, they just have them start writing. And then they would have American people read over the PA, things like that. And very subtly, they would start shifting their position. And then they'd put them in discussion groups, because like social pressure is so massive, with very highly intellectual Vietnamese people that would, discuss the sort of benefits of socialism and stuff. And slowly the people that were, it became, more and more sort of towards this radical position. And eventually over time, over several years, they would come out a totally different person, entirely on this communist and Vietnamese side. And the U.S. didn't know what was going on. And then this politician, McCarthy, like made this like like they have this technique of brainwashing, which is like, infecting the world or whatever. It's a mind virus, right? So
in other words, Lehman really put a stamp on you because of the culture.
Yeah, like I don't, certainly at 21, I was not one who was not going to like I showed up and like I was like, I don't know what these guys are doing in front of their computer, but like I want to win this game. I'm going to learn the rules of the game and I'm going to win the game.
Like
right?
100% like Wolf of Wall Street types.
Yeah, it's just like, well, I mean, what else do you do there? If you don't do that, you last 1 year and you're gone, right? Like, as a part of that, I adopted, I became that, right?
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
And I think I've become an entrepreneur now. And like, I can sort of, from the outside, judge the value system that I was in. It's very different than
from
what I have created as the culture of my company now, right? Like in so many ways, it's just not focused on the same thing. And I understand what I believe to be a meaningful life. And I think it would be very difficult for me to achieve what I now believe is a meaningful life if I was still doing that, right? At 43 years old, if I was still doing that, there is no question that I would be going through some sort of midlife crisis right now. Luckily, it happened to me when I was 30, when I sort of got pushed out of that job and like, lost my, girlfriend broke up with me that was like super serious at the same time. And I got fired from like a position that I took, like everything crashed down at once. And I sort of was forced to rebuild myself as a person from nothing, which is like, I don't know if you've ever gone through that. It's fucking terrible. But the good news is it can't happen to you again after you do that. Like once you've literally lost, and it's weird because it's not like, my parents died when I'm 10 or whatever, but like everything that I had and everything that I knew about myself was gone overnight. And I reemerged from it all years later as a completely different person.
How did you feel during that
It's fucking
episode
terrible. It was the worst thing you could ever go through. Like There is nothing more like, so not everybody has this experience. Like everything went pretty well for me from when I was a kid to when I was like 30. You know, almost a straight line, right? Like I did really well in school. I did well at sports. Like I did well in college. I got a literally top tier job. Like what the smartest kids were trying to get, I just showed up and did it. Did great at that job. And made tons of money. And then, I mean, literally in the course of 7 days, my whole life and everything that I thought that I was gone. And that, I believe,
Fuck.
when you're so attached to that type of success and identity I can't imagine anything more painful, right? Because like it was the love in my life was gone, and the career that I was so deeply intertwined with this identity of this guy who was crushing it. It was gone, and I had no like. And I proactively decided not to go back to that life for like a lot of different reasons. Most of which I just like made enough money, and I had realized that I didn't really intrinsically like the job. Like I had come to that realization. It's like, look, so long as I'm going to make $1 bajillion, I'll sit here and do this. But like, if that appears to be over, I've saved enough to where I'm going to go try to figure out something else. You know, like before I have kids or whatever.
That's like why I asked before, like, how did you sleep at night? In the sense of like, I think that people are really talented liars to themselves. In the sense of like, you know, yeah, I'm having like whatever social definition of success. I'm hitting that, but actually I don't feel good with myself. And I think that how you sleep at night is one of the best things to see, like your subconscious, how you are subconscious. So if you're like, yeah, I slept like a baby, like then that means that in that point of time you were really doing what you thought was right, also intrinsically.
Yeah.
Or am I?
No, and that was my original. You know, that was my comment about like people being susceptible and impressionable to their environment. So I love this phrase. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah, that's a great average.
You know,
great.
So
great
like,
sentence.
I think you're spot on. I mean, and if you want to call that lying to yourself, you can. That's like sort of a bad way of, or, you know, that's like a kind of got a negative connotation to it. And slightly more positive would be, I was just the average of the 5 people I was spending the most time with.
Yeah, okay.
Look, I and it's, you know, I think we lie to ourselves a lot, right? Like it's hard to like, I don't know, like I have an 18-month-old. The first year after most people have a kid, your spouse, if you're a male, the woman is going through something incredibly difficult, right? Like just physically, mentally, you know, they literally have this like trauma. They have physical injury. The life that they knew is gone. I mean, obviously, like you rebuild, and the new great one is much better in almost every case. But you're going through it, and then I think when you reflect, it doesn't feel as fucked up as it was while it's happening, right? Like a year goes by, and you're like, man, that was like, there were some dark moments there, you know, like that was some pretty fucked up shit. So, you know, I think that can be analogous to the rest of your life too. It's like, to me at least, like I'm so positive that, you know, it can be easy for me to like go through a spell of a dark time, like this time in New York when, you know, like my whole identity was gone, and like I just partied a lot for like, you know, literally I was just like raging as a guy in New York without a job for like a couple of years before I started my startup, and that was my identity. You know, like
that's what I mean with like let's rephrase
and by the way,
differently. Not
I
being
didn't
honest.
sleep. Go ahead.
Wait. No. Go.
Yeah. During that period, I wasn't sleeping great at night.
Okay. Yeah.
For a lot of reasons, you know.
Let's rephrase the lying to oneself is not being honest to oneself. Maybe because that's like there's a nuance there, you know. I think like me personally, like also like I had a big ass drug history,
Yeah.
and you know still doing stuff and being like, yeah, but it's fun, it's okay to take drugs because of blah de blah de blah,
Yeah.
some superficial reason and everything. But in the end, if I'm like really truthful to myself now that I'm completely sober, I really fucked up there, you know. But it took me so much to so much time to really see that and be able to be that honest towards myself, you know, if that makes sense. And
So like I have been sober, totally haven't done a drug or drank in about 3.5 years, and I just partied a lot. There is no greater truth than what you said, and it is so hard to explain to people when they're still in it. You know, it's like there's just so many people in my life. I'm like, if you just did one thing, all of this stuff would fix itself over time. Just stop
yeah,
drinking and stop doing drugs, right?
yeah,
Like,
true.
like all of this shit that you're worried about, and they're
Yeah,
like, well, you know, yeah, you know, I haven't done blow in like 3 months. It's like, no, you did 2 weeks ago, you know, like or less, right? Like, and it's a subtle devil. These
yeah.
addictions, right?
Because
Like,
the thing is,
and
because you're actually what you're doing is you're escaping from the reality of feeling like a little shit. You're escaping
mhm,
from that. You're trying to compensate, and then you think
yeah,
that you're having fun, but actually you're just passing moments. They're fleeting. Like I've
yeah,
got zero memories of all the large fun I used to have.
yeah,
You know, it's like
yeah. Yeah, I
me.
remember that it felt awesome, but like, and I just like, for me, for me, it's like I just am so much better of I mean, you know what I mean? It's just like my whole, if you look at like everything about my life now versus even 5 years ago, right? So I'm 43, 38. I was single. Like it is on every metric that you would measure, I'm a 10x as a person. And like
Grandpardo.
that may not be entirely attributed to not drinking, you know, drinking. Like I lived in New York for like 12 years. What you do in New York, or all of my friends, is you know, I'd wake up, I'd work out, I'd go to work, I would like go to a bar afterwards, go to dinner at a restaurant, go home, like watch a Netflix show or whatever, go to bed, do it again. So every night you're just out drinking, you know. By the end of the week, it's like devolving to probably a little more than that. And then I was getting absolutely smashed
Mm.
on the weekends, like, you know, weekend warrior type, you know, just whatever. I was just always never said no to anything, down for anything. And like I kept living like that for a long time. And like, I don't know. There's no question that it takes away from me, my energy, my sharpness. Like
It chips you, man. Yeah,
yeah,
it
it's
chips,
like
it hacks at you.
so I started seeing a therapist because I read this great book called the Great CEO Within. And you know, I'm in a scaling phase in my startup right now, which I feel very grateful for. But one of the points this guy makes is the emotional burden of scaling a startup is substantial, and it's not fair to only share that burden with your spouse. So get a therapist, get a mentor, and get a group of peers. So that was my goal for 2024. Get those three things. I have a therapist, I found a mentor, and then I'm working on a group of peers. I want it to be in person rather than like on Zoom or whatever. Um, and you know, after 8 sessions, this one's like, "Why are you here?" I'm like, "Well, you know, I'm pretty reflective. I journal and stuff, but like, I just want to like I want to do. It's like I want to treat this like going to the gym. You know,
Mm.
like when something comes, because it's not always going to be like this. Like, I want to be in the practice of addressing this stuff, um, and like, it's great. Um, a point she made, and this is why I'm telling you this, is I was talking about like I don't want to talk bad about who I was hanging out with in New York, but like I was on a very different vibe, and just like the overall health of the people that I'm around now, mostly mentally, but some physically, is like so much greater than how I was living in my 30s. And she's like, look, like you're like you're the energy level that you're operating on attracts people at a similar energy level,
Yeah.
you know?
True.
And like I was operating on so much lower. I mean, objectively, I don't even think it's subjective. Like I was just what I was attempting to get out of my life was, it was just worse than what I'm trying to get out of it now.
You know what I think it is, and correct me if I'm wrong, yeah. So taking drugs and partying and all of that shit and complaining, that shit is easy. It's fucking easy. Everyone can go out, have a beer and everything. What is hard is, I'm not gonna drink today. I'm gonna go to the bar, but I'm not gonna drink. And then go to the bar and not drink. The problem is if you then drink, you hate yourself because you said to yourself, you promised the most important person in your life, I'm not gonna do it, but you did. And I think that is like more of the reason of going 10x. Like, discipline is self-love. I'm really, discipline is self-love. If you say I'm gonna do this and this and this today, and you don't do it, you're like, oh, fuck, when you're in bed, I should have done that, I could have been stronger, blah, 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 blah. But when you've done it, you're like, and you sleep like a freaking baby.
Yeah.
And then you go 10x, you know?
Yeah.
But I do also feel that for that to happen, you require an ambition, a goal. So what is it for you that changed from going through this, 38 something lifestyle that's not too healthy to like, okay, man, I'm gonna have a therapist, I'm gonna have a mentor, I'm gonna have, peers and my tribe. Like, what changed internally?
Yeah.
What happened?
So like, I was still quite ambitious while this was happening. And like, I would run every day. So I thought I was being healthy, and like, I had a lot of time. My company was in like a cyclical sort of lull period. It was just stuck and somebody else was managing it. So it was this, in my late 30s, I had this really interesting few-year period where I wasn't really doing much, but I was still like, I was spitting out cash, and I was like kind of living this like nomadic, digital nomad, like kind of right when digital nomadism became cool. I was like, I'm going to go do that. So I was doing it. And I had a lot of time to just think about stuff, reading a lot of books, trying to figure out what was next, right? Like I had this lifestyle business that was like, it was stuck, and I was making enough money to support a single guy, but it was shrinking. Right? It's not a good feeling. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it was more than enough. Like I didn't even worry about, I'd go anywhere, I'd do anything or whatever. But like the fact that it's shrinking and like not enough to like support a family in New York, which I knew I wanted at some point. So like, it's just a weird spot to be stuck in. And no matter what I did, because like this is, in my opinion, this is the nature of startups and products. It's like, if you don't have product market fit, if you don't have word of mouth, then nothing that you do will work. If you have word of mouth.
Just 2 seconds, product market fit means that you have a product that your market appreciates and wants, and that you're growing organically. For those who are not business savvy listening back home. And also a quick reminder to not go to business, my friend.
Yeah. But like, if you don't have this stuff, nothing's going to work, yet everyone's going to pitch you. Like Warren Buffett has this expression, don't ask the barber if you need a haircut. So like anybody that I would ever run into on this journey that did any type of agency, you name it. It's like, if they had a UX agency, my problem was UX. And if I just redid the UX, then it would start growing again. If I ran into somebody who had a Facebook ads agency, then my problem was Facebook ads. And we could totally run Facebook ads and it would work, right? Like nothing worked. The product wasn't good enough, which is another ego thing, right? Because like you put everything in your life into something, and once you understand this paradigm that like the reason your business is not growing is because the product's not good enough, that literally means I am not good enough. Right? Like, so I'm not a person that likes living with that feeling, so I really had a ton of ambition to solve this problem and figure something else out. And by the way, I have, like, thank God, and I feel so lucky. And I just want other entrepreneurs to know that like, if you just can put yourself in a financial position to keep throwing spaghetti at the wall, something will eventually hit. if you just keep trying, right? But like you have to be honest with yourself about a shitty product, right? So it's this game, you know. Anyway, ton of reflection time. Still was very ambitious. Stuck in this weird position. And I read this. There was like a Jeff Bezos biography that came out, and I thought this was so interesting. I could relate to this because like what Wall Street, how it operates is they will pay, they know like they'll pay you $1 more in your bonus than it will take for you to just leave and do something else. Like that's the way that they keep people around. It's just amazing how they can calculate just like, I'll do it for one more year or whatever. And Jeff Bezos had this killer job at like a super famous hedge fund in his late 20s and was crushing it, called D.E. Shaw. And said he like, he talked to his boss. He's like, I'm going to go start this book company in Seattle. And his boss is like, dude, like if you didn't have, like you were set up to be a billionaire. Like if you didn't have this position, like I would say, go do it. But like, this is insane. Like why, like it's great. And he's like, what do you think the odds are that it's going to succeed? He's like, I think it's like a 25% chance of success or whatever. And Bezos says, the reason that I did it was I pictured myself as an 80-year-old on my deathbed, looking back and thinking, what would I have wanted my 28-year-old self to have done as an 80-year-old? That discipline, I think, is fantastic. I think we should all challenge ourselves to do that once a year, just like, does my 80-year-old self approve of how I am spending my time now? One thing you can't get back, right?
That's an interesting segue to go meta. Like, there's this huge taboo about death, because like people don't accept it or pushing. Also, like in the end, it's a scientific problem. If you read Harari or some others. Like, what if you like were able to live every day as if it's like, hey, this could end. Like, life is not infinite; it's finite. So,
right.
like like how much change there would be. I don't know. It's a little
and that's different for everybody, right?
Yeah.
But like when I was 38 on this little nomading journey or whatever, I decided to be like, I'm going to write as my 80-year-old self what I want my 40s to look like. Right? And like I just started writing this stuff that was not what I was at all. Right. I was letting it free flow. It was like the strangest thing was like, it hadn't even occurred to me. I'm like, I want to be sober. Like I wrote that. And like, it wasn't even something that I must in my subconscious have been, gnawing on it. And like, there's many times when you're partying a lot where you're like, I need to do this less, or like, I need to do like, basically when I became sober, I'm like, the thing that I had trouble regulating was frequency and quantity. Right. Like, I would say like, I'm going to do 2 nights this week, and then it would turn into 4. And then, it's like, I'm going to have a couple beers tonight, and then it turns into 7. Right. Like, and it's just like, and I understand why now. Like, it's just, I like this stuff, and I like being around people who are doing that. Right. Like, so like I said that I was single totally, no even candidates. And I was like, I want to spend my I want to spend my time focused on a thriving business with great people and my family. Didn't have either one. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, I want to live a healthy life. I want to focus on, keeping my body and my mind in shape. Like all of these, like really like self-love type things, that I just wasn't doing at all. And then going into my 40th birthday, I was like, man, I want to be in better shape when I'm 40 than when I'm 20. So it was during COVID. There were no races, but I trained for a half marathon one time in 2008, and I just got like shredded, and I was like, I'm going to do that for 3 months because I know my body will respond well to it. And I know I can do it because I've done it before. So train for a half marathon. I'm like, while I do it, I'm going to stop drinking, because when you're drinking a lot and you stop drinking, that also just like takes it off. So 3 months go by, and man, if you stop drinking for 3 months and you drink every day, like you just see this like major transformation in your life, right? Combined with like, and I did this half marathon. I ended up doing it by myself, like on a Wednesday, since like there were no races. Just woke up, swam, bike, ran. 6 hours later, I was done. And I was not at a point where I was like, I'm never going to drink again. I'm definitely there now. But like at that point, after 3 months, I'm like,
let's see for 6 months.
yeah, I'm gonna just let this ride for a little bit. I was like, maybe I'll be California sober, do some psilocybin every once in a while, mind expansion or whatever. And then, I think on my birthday we woke up and like ate some shroom chocolate. I'm like, this is fucking stupid. Like, it's so beautiful here. I don't need to. It was like we were in Tulum. The plan was to like wake up and have like a morning like psychedelic journey for my birthday with all my friends. And like I took one bite and I'm like, this is fucking stupid. Like the downside of this turning into like the life that I was living 3 months ago is like so big. Cause like, I don't know how you are, but it's a slippery slope with me. It's like, oh, if I start to like compartment, it's like, oh, like, yeah, we'll do some shrooms. It's like, oh, some shrooms and ketamine would be a little bit better. And then like all of a sudden MDMA is in there. And then like, I'm getting totally fucked up every weekend, just not drinking, which is like not what I want to do. So, ever since then, yeah, I just have been, it's so easy for me to be black and white on this stuff.
Yeah, man.
And like anywhere in between.
Yeah.
And I think that's just, I've read about habits that's how you set a habit. It's just, you're black and white, right? And by the way, I'm fasting right now because I like to do it once a quarter. And I have to go, I'm trying to make it 5 days I never have. This is day 2.5. And like, there's this conference called SAS Open that's in Austin this week. I have like 4 live podcast recordings, a keynote, and 3 dinners. I'm like, gonna fast through this, right? And like, with these fasts, I've done probably 5 of them.
Oh, the 72 hours or?
Yeah, something like that. Like this one, I'm going 5 days, which is a lot. But like
faggy.
whenever, if I even open my mind to eating, it is game over.
Man,
you know what I mean?
On this regard, I was in a therapy session with my therapist for my autism coach also. So with my autism, and we were talking about like my fear that I fear for like one of the fears I have is to be unfaithful. Like I like the other sex quite a lot.
Yep.
And that is one of my fears. And my therapist was once I was talking about this, and she was like, "Yeah," I was telling her like, "Yeah, if I would be really drunk, I would be afraid to do something stupid that I would regret the day after." And she was like,
I hear you.
but then she said something that really blew my mind away. She was like, "Okay, would you ever rape someone if you're drunk?" And I was like, "No, no way. No matter how drunk I am, I would never ever do that shit." And she was like, "Exactly, because you made a choice not to do that. The reason that you could do it, the reason that you could cheat on your girlfriend when you're drunk is because you've never consciously made a choice that that's not okay and that you don't do that. So it's all about choices. It's about choosing not to do something and then sticking to it. And the longer you stick to it, the easier it gets. It's like, hard stuff. The longer you do hard stuff, the easier hard stuff becomes. And that's also one of the things that I'm fearful of. Like what you say, like I'm very afraid to pick up a joint or pick up this because I'm like, hey, like where would that lead to?
Totally. You're honest with yourself. and you know what you want, so like this, I totally empathize with that. And like, I think like in the culture that I was living in New York, like a lot of men sort of were able to live in a way where they hadn't made that choice and it was fine for them. And, so far as like, you go to Burning Man, there's people with these like poly relationships that like appear to be working for you when you're at Burning Man observing it, right? Like, and that seems amazing because like, who doesn't want that, right? Like, and the way I put it is like, I just turned it off. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not drinking helps a lot, and not being in environments where there's the type of temptation that would like cause a problem like that. But like, really, mostly, I just turned it off. It's like I was just like and it's not even about like to me, this like monogamy thing, like it's not even about like believing that like honestly, like if my wife told me that like she like went to Vegas and like banged somebody and came back, I would not. It's not about like I don't give a shit. You know, it's like to me, it's the same reason I don't drink. I have this beautiful life with this woman in this partnership. She does not want that, and it's so valuable to me that I will never do anything to compromise it, right? Ever. Like in a million it's just not fucking worth it, right? Like, and, but interestingly, I was, so like there's this entrepreneur that I was friends with that I'm friends with in Austin. And out of the blue, he just brought this up at a dinner. And I'm so glad he told this story because like, so he's like, I hired this super hot, like 20 something head of marketing and set her next to me 10 years ago. And he's this strapping 6'4" Estonian guy, like entrepreneur, like just the best looking guy you've ever seen. Right. Like what happens? He's like, I ended up having a mental and emotional affair with this woman, like never physically cheated on her, but like I noticed myself the whole weekend, like we started texting, texting at night or whatever. And like on the weekend, I'd be like thinking of this woman and I couldn't stop myself. And so he's like, I had to bring it up to my like wife. It was horrible. Like I moved out, like we like went to therapy and everything. And it's great now. But he's like, what I realized is like, it was, I had 2 5-year-olds, 5 and a 3-year-old, and like my wife's busting my balls, and like this woman thinks I'm the fucking man, and like she's like hot and young, and he's like, I just realized it was like she was, he was like, I just realized it was because of me, like I wasn't, whatever. There were other reasons for that happened, and I was like, dude, like, I'm so glad I heard that story because like, who could, over time, like that is kryptonite. Right. Like regardless, this thing that I'm saying that I turned it off, like I don't have that in my life, right? Like in any regard. Like I don't drink, like I'm not hanging out with a bunch of like hot single chicks that are interested in me. Like it's just not something that I do and I want to subject myself to. But I was like, I'm very much in the opposite place of that right now. But if that person was sitting next to me every day, it would erode that. So like for me it goes a step further. Like I'm not willing to even put myself in situations that would lead.
But that's the interesting part because like for me personally, I do go to bars. I went to a party recently.
Yeah,
I really didn't like the party, the bar. I'm always with the 0-0 drinks.
Yeah, me too.
Like and everyone is always like, hey, you want a beer? I'm like, no, I rather not. And then it happens like, oh my God, man, wow, that's so amazing. And just that shit even motivates me more to do it because it's like so normal to drink and so standardized to be a, whatever. And especially because also I feel like as an entrepreneur and the story that you just shared, and I don't know how it is for you, but I feel that entrepreneurs, we're a real obsessive bunch, like we can be fucking obsessive.
No, that's the reason we are where we are, right? Like you cannot, I believe that there is no way to do it half-assed. The world doesn't need you. Like, so if you're doing it half-assed, somebody's going to come along and do it whole-ass and you're dead. Like that's the reality of it.
Yeah, true. How, so I'm always interested in like where character traits come from. And like most of them, it's like childhood. So my obsession comes from being abandoned by my dad, being bullied a lot, having a stepdad that never really believed in me. I'm a little bit the black sheep of the family, and I've got this internal slave driver that is like, fuck everyone and all, and I'm gonna just, show all the non-believers what I'm capable of. So that's for me a big part of my obsession. Where do you think your obsession comes from?
So I think that I just like my dad grew up on a farm and just worked so hard to like give us opportunity. And like, really that meant my brother went to Stanford. I went to this university called Rice in Houston that European people don't know of, but it's a great school. My sister went to Harvard. Like we were able to like, start our adult lives with this incredible advantage. And then for me, on top of that, I always knew, and this was incredible for my trading career, worst comes to worst, I can go sleep in my parents' basement while I figure it out. So it just gave me an unbelievable risk tolerance. Like, and I still have it, right? So, but more important, so like that was super important. And like my mom was, housewife, but like just an incredible mother and like a hard work, like she was just involved in everything. And like, they were just amazing people. And what was the most impactful though was my brother was a super elite swimmer from when he was 8 years old to he had a full scholarship to Stanford, which is like the best, the most ambitious like swimming program ever. Basically like tried out for the Olympics in 2000. He got fourth in the 100 breast.
Older
They only
brother?
take two. Yeah, 15 months older than me. So
Oh
there was a
yeah.
little bit of like a black sheep syndrome. Like
Shadow kind of.
yeah, exactly. I swam, and then like when I was 12, my brother was ranked first in the country and everything, and I was ranked first in the state of Connecticut and everything, and it just was. And then when I was 13, I hadn't gone through puberty yet, and a bunch of kids had, and I was all of a sudden not even good anymore. So I was like, this sucks. I don't like it. I don't like being Anthony's brother anymore. Like I'm gonna go do something else.
If you're not able to be the best at it, why even try? Like
Yeah,
that kind of attitude.
I mean, I think a lot of stuff was happening. Like we moved from Connecticut to Texas, and I was just getting a lot of bullying related to it. Also, like just social, And I was like, I sucked at it, and like I was Anthony's brother and swimmer boy, and like I was just like, I'm fucking done with this. So, I picked basketball up, and so like there's a few sports that kids do that their schedule is so grueling that it is the most incredible training for life you could ever go through. So swimming is one of these. Ice skating is one. Gymnastics is one. Like these kids from the time they're 13 or 14, like they're training 7 hours a day, not including the transition time, and like Saturday mornings, right? So like, and you've got to go to school and do your homework somehow in between all that. Right. So like it just, it's just amazing training for life. Right. Like, I don't know how else to say it. And, witnessing what goes into being the best, because it's not only going through the motions, it's like a mental game too. Like just, it was just incredible to watch that type of focus over the course of months, which is the swimming season, right? Like to just observe it, like as a passive observer. And, I just feel very fortunate to have grown up in it. Cause like when I wanted to play basketball, I obviously sucked at it. Cause like you don't just start playing basketball and turn good. Very quickly I was like, if I literally just played basketball as much as Anthony swam, I would be incredibly proficient at the things related to skills. There's athleticism, which I think you're born with and you can't get, but like I'd be able to shoot the shit out of the ball basically. And I did,
Work
and I
beats
could,
talent if
right?
talent
Like,
doesn't work hard.
yeah, exactly. So that, I think for me, the experience of, being terrible at basketball and then slowly becoming really good by like my third year of high school or whatever, was just analogous to a journey of life, right? Like it's just sort of, I just saw the direct improvement from all of the effort that I was putting in and nobody else was. And, I still have that belief, right? Like, yeah.
Nice.
So That I think is a formative stuff. It's like,
How is that? Because like for instance, like now with retention.com and it's business related, but it's not that much a business question. So retention.com, you guys are really smashing it, and your turnover is growing. You're just like, I don't know if you're near unicorn status yet.
wanna be not there yet. I thought we were
Okay,
gonna
but
go there,
still
but then
the
our
dream is
trend's
there. The
bad.
dream is there. So work
Yeah,
hard and
we'll get there
we'll-
eventually.
Probably email you had like 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 years. Sorry, small
Yeah,
time difference
no,
there.
all good.
8 years of hustling. The thing is like a lot of people gather their courage or their motivation from results. Like, hey, it's growing. Yeah, I'm fired up to go to work. How did you, because like like now you're in that state with retention, it wasn't like that in the beginning. The same with Robly email, I guess. Like you had to have some grit. You had to push forward. Not seeing immediate result, no instant gratification, all delayed gratification. How did you go through those? How did you go through that motion of like grinding and waking up, pushing through, not giving up, keep on
Yeah.
going? Like how? What?
So
What?
I had,
Yeah.
I had saved too much money from my trading career. Like it's a bootstrap company, but like not really. Like I had a couple $1,000,000 that I basically spent on it in my life. And I think I could have made the business work if that number were 100,000. I just would have had to be way more resourceful. But like, I think the biggest thing is that before I ran out of money, there was like a path to it working. Does that make sense? Like as startups, you kind of always deal with runway in some regard, but like, and by the way, a thing that one of my entrepreneur friends says that I think is like accurate in my experience is like the stuff that you start that starts off a grind stays a grind. When you start something off and it's like a rocket ship from second one, it kind of like, and everything's easy, relatively, it stays easy, right? And that has been
Interesting.
my experience with the companies that I've started. That first one was a fucking grind from day one. It was a fucking grind to the last day I had it. Thank God we sold it for $10 million. But like, everything was so hard. Like, there was a time during, it's just impossible to put myself back in that spot now because like everything is so different for me now. Like, there was a time when COVID hit and like there were these paycheck protection loans and like you could apply for, our business was like whatever, like people canceled because COVID happened or whatever. So like, I submitted to this thing and like we got $100,000 grant. And then like we had just started what is now retention.com. And like it was like kind of working. And I remember telling Helen, my wife, had just met at the time, she's like, man, like I just feel like I've never gotten breaks like this before as an entrepreneur. Like I just feel like nothing had ever gone, in my like I'd just come off of this like lawsuit. It's just everything about that business was super hard. And everything about retention.com from day one, like, look, now we're kind of stuck again because like it's just we're at a point. It's like kind of like no matter your churn rate is what holds you from growing your top line in software because it's a leaky bucket, right? Like, so like we're kind of stuck again, and you got to figure out how to like lower the churn or like increase the pipeline or like launch adjacent products or launch totally different products or whatever. But like, still the underlying economics, the product is valuable, right? So like it's like annoying good that we have competition or whatever, but like it's still a good business. But like that one, man, it was just so hard. And it's one of those things. It's like I didn't know how hard it was until something got much easier for me. You know? Does that make sense? Like it's
Yeah.
like this product market fit thing. It's like you read this stuff and it's like hard to admit to yourself that like, you know, it's inadequate. And then like, you know, yeah. And then your friends are telling you, it's like, dude, it's not that bad. Like you're making money, like whatever. And then it's like, no, dude, like it is that bad. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do, and like I don't know how much longer this thing's gonna last, you know. And it has lasted. Like we sold it 3 years ago. 3 years and 10 days ago, we sold it. In the entire team, there were like 10 people that went to the new company. All 10 of them stayed for 3 years. Isn't that crazy? The whole team's still together, and the company bought it, loves it. So anyway,
And they're still there. The
yeah,
guys.
still there now.
Crazy.
Isn't that crazy? But yeah, it was reflecting on the journey. It was a grind. It was just so hard. And maybe
to go back to the
someday
question, what was it that got you out of bed in the morning? Because it was hard. So why
Yeah.
did you keep pushing through?
Yeah. So there were periods when I thought that it was going to go. I thought that it was going to end in a much larger place than it did. Does that make sense? So while we were on our way up
Yeah.
from 0 to 3, it was
Yeah.
kind of fast and it got stuck
Yeah.
at 3. But like
Yeah.
while we were on our way up, I thought I was going to get to like 20 or something.
Yeah, I get it.
So that is very motivating to get out of bed. Then it gets stuck, and then it gets harder to get out of bed because you're just like, you know. But I think it's just like, I mean, I had fear is the word, right? Like I had a fear of what was after this because I was looking at it and I was like, you know, this does not support the life that I want in 10 years, right? Like financially, right? Like and it's hard to talk about startups because everybody's in a different personal financial situation also. And it's like, you know, where I was when I started mine is not where most people are, right? Like they haven't like had this prolific trading career and saved millions of dollars and able to just like turn around and plow it into like becoming an entrepreneur. And by the way, I plowed every penny, you know, like in a way it would have been better for us if I didn't have that money because I would have started a better business. Like I was so motivated to make it happen. It's just, I would have had to had a higher bar for product, a higher bar for everything, right? Like, because I genuinely believe when you start a business, like you're going to spend every penny you have. It doesn't matter if it's $100,000 or $10 million. Like if you're like, I am going to make this business work. Like if you have $10 million, you're going to spend it like a fucking idiot. Like that's what's going to happen. If you have $100,000, yeah, if you have $100,000, you're going to be a lot more frugal. So like anybody that asked me for advice in the beginning, I'm like, don't spend money. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you just got an office. You're a fucking idiot. Get rid of the office. They're like, I can't. It's like, no, yes, you can. Tell them you have no money and get rid of the office. Don't form an LLC. Don't do anything. Like until you have money coming in a happy group of customers, don't do a single thing. Don't hire anyone. Don't do anything. That money that you have saved, you have to make it last as long as humanly possible. And you're not going to, and you're going to come back to me in 3 years and say you were right. You know, because like, regardless of what it feels like right now, it will be your last dollar at some point. I genuinely believe it. Like there's this other finance guy who was a lot richer than me when he left, and he spent all of his money on his startup. And it was like, I think he put $20 million into it of his own dough. Like it's ended up fine or whatever. They raised it a huge number and we're taking secondary off during the peak or whatever. But I genuinely believe that. Like if you start off on this journey and like you have this irrational commitment to it, and it's like you're so convicted that it is what you are going to make your life, you will spend all your money if you're a first-time entrepreneur. If you're second time, no, you've learned your lesson, right? Like I starve my businesses until they're working, right? Like, in some ways, but yeah, it's all part of the journey, man. Every overnight success is 10 years in the making, right? Like, that's
true. It's funny what you said because like I think I'm now on my 4th or 5th endeavor. And I'm starting also a new secret project, and it's funny because like all my money is in the new secret project.
Yeah.
I think I've like the last 10 years or something. I think I've been living on approximately 750 euros a month, plus
Good for
minus.
you. Yeah.
No, not good for me. I wish I had
No,
more
no.
financial
Well, I mean, if
success.
you saw how absurd, like, dude, like, I just can't believe. So, like, I can't believe how expensive it is to live a seemingly like not okay, like if you looked at my house from the front, you would be like, that is a modest house, right? It's like there's no arguing it. But like, we get our landscaping done once a year. You know, we have a pool and a pool guy takes care of it. Like, we have lawn people coming. Like, I have a daughter. My wife works. We have a full-time nanny that we pay cash, right? Like, I cannot believe, so like I'm sitting there and I'm like, I was talking to my buddy about this and he's like, I literally couldn't believe it last year. So I got a bookkeeper to run my house in QuickBooks. So we send her all our transactions every month. She comes up with a P&L and my wife and I have a finance meeting so we can understand what's going on, right? But, and like, I share a boat with a guy, right? We travel to nice places. But like still, it's not, we're not flying private, we're not flying first class. Like it's like we're just going on a ski trip, you know? I was talking to my buddy about it. He's like, you're looking at it all and you're like, I know how to live on 20 grand a year because I've done it. But like none of this stuff looks, it's the weird thing because like the big things aren't negotiable. It's like you got a mortgage, it's not going away. Like you're not going to like not do landscaping, right? Like, and then it gets to this point where it's like, okay, so like we spend, and this sounds crazy, but like we spend $6,000 a month, between 5 and 6 grand on food. Half of it's restaurants, half of it's groceries. You know, we buy organic berries for our kid and they're like $6 each and she devours, you know, one a day, right? Like, you know, Helen, like we eat healthy, she buys steaks, whatever. Like, and you look at that and you're like, okay, I could probably get that down to like 4 if I stopped eating at nice restaurants, which like I like eating at nice restaurants. And we like bought, you know, the food problem in America is real. Like if you buy inexpensive processed foods, like it's killing America. Like 70% of our country is obese, right? Like, so it's like, what do you do? You know, like I don't want my kid eating that shit, right? Like, so it's like, and then you look at all of it and you're like, what's saving that $1,000 really going to do when I'm like spending 50, you know, on all this shit, right? Like, and you're like, where'd the shit come from? Because like when I literally in my late 30s, I was living like this, like on hardly anything, right? I was like, I didn't have a primary residence. I was just bopping around getting Airbnbs all over the place for like, you know, $800 a month or whatever, right? Like, and not spending anything. And people said it. It's like, it's just crazy how quickly it all piles up. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, who can afford this? Like, I understand how, like, how I can, right? But like, and I guess, you know, all of my friends are like, you know, sort of like they've had these careers where they made a lot of money and they can like do it. But like, it's just wild. I don't know.
Yeah, lifestyle, man. It takes a lot of hard work to exit the rat race.
It's
Hot damn.
bananas. It's crazy.
All right, I've got 2 final questions for you because the hour just flew by, like was a fucking supersonic jet or something. So, like, what would be your definition of success? Is my pre-last question, my second final.
I believe that success is, for me, it's just like, you know, creating a life of dignity in like, you know, being a great role model and inspiration for my family and friends. And like, if I can continue doing that and like, living in this like positive and healthy way, that like very broadly defines success for me. It's very multifaceted in my opinion. It's definitely not related to, I feel successful right now. Like I haven't had a big exit. Like I don't like, you know what I mean? Like I'm not even really oriented towards that. Like, I just think demonstrating that I am going through life in a way that is giving so much to me and other people, and just showing people that that is possible makes me successful.
Okay, nice.
I believe
Nice.
that. So
So less about the outcome and more about the journey. If I
yeah, and like even more than just the journey for me, it's like sharing the journey with other people and letting them know that like you can live your whole life in a way to where it's mostly giving you very positive things for you and other people. You know,
yeah,
like you're never
I hear you.
trapped, right? Like there is a path. Like you can do any.
Yeah, we're so much more capable than we give ourselves. Yeah, 100%. And then final question, Adam. What's the dream? What's next for you? Like in the next 5 or so years, or
Yeah,
maybe
so like
even the BHAG, the big hairy audacious dream in
yeah,
the
like
far away future.
we I kind of mentioned it earlier in this. So first of all, I have an 18-month-old. My wife is pregnant with she's a female. My wife's pregnant with a male. So like this is great. That's like one core pillar of my experience on this planet that will be forever that, right? It's just like so much of you is that. And I just feel very grateful for all of that. It's in such a good place now. Hopefully it will always be. You never know. And then, we're starting this new business unit right now that's very different than anything that I've ever done before. It's like a freemium product, and free is interesting because like just because it's free doesn't mean people will use it and like it. Free means you can probably pay for ads and people will come sign up or whatever. But like we launched this free product 26 days ago. We've had 3,000 signups, and it requires you to install a script on your website, and 78% of people have self-serve installed that script on their website. Think about that. 3,000 people signed up. 78% of self-serve signups have put a script down on their site. That is fucking wild. I've never heard anything like that. I was expecting 30.
78 is,
Like
quite a crazy
78%
conversion.
is like we did a demo and we got 78% of them to put the script on
Yeah.
if they said they were going to, right? Like, so the feedback we're getting from this is insane. We don't have the feature set that we're expecting to monetize yet. Like we need to build a HubSpot and Salesforce integration and like add some filtering or whatever. But like the like top of funnel, like my LinkedIn presence is just fueling this amazingly. And like, it's like the metrics that we're tracking. I've just never heard of anything like that before. You know what I mean? Like, so it opens the door for, there's a next product that we can like launch into the same audience in a similar way that like could really sort of disrupt a very large space. So, and just the way we're doing it is so new and revolutionary. It's like this founder brand led, free offer, like kind of like we're trying to build it with like no humans and AI chatbots and stuff. It's like, it feels like a really cutting edge way to be building a SaaS. And I'm just looking forward to building all of this stuff because like I said before, like, I think it's such a great example. Like when you can nail this founder brand content creation, I believe that it's creating a level of trust with your target audience that can be replicated no other way with no amount of money. So like this company called Drift, which I love, in 2015 through 18, they for an early stage startup, they made a huge investment in brand, but it took them $100 million. Like they just created so much affinity around their company and this logo and this idea of what they were doing, conversational marketing. But they were writing books. There's blogs every day. They had 4 podcasts or whatever. Like, I think Santosh and I have actually more trust than they do from posting on LinkedIn to these people for 6 months. It's just subjective, but like it's getting to the point with me now, which is a very weird thing for me, where like I was having a coffee with the founder of Clearbit, which is a data company, last Tuesday in a coffee shop at 1 p.m. He's asking me about this LinkedIn thing. And I'm like, it's incredible. And I'm telling him all of this stuff. I'm like, I can't believe it, right? Like how these people feel like they know me as a person, because I'm doing a lot of video also with that intention. Guy walks up, he's like, "Are you Adam Robinson?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I installed our B2B yesterday and my sales guy booked 5 demos in one day." And I'm like, "Dude, this is what I'm talking about." Right? Like in South by Southwest was here a couple weeks before. Like I went to 3 events. In each one of them, somebody walked up to me who did not live in Austin and said something to the effect of, "You're the most inspirational person in my life right now." Incredible. Right? So like,
So
like
the B hack is like being an inspiration for.
Well, it's just I want to show people that what's incredible about that to me is not that I'm famous. I love the fact that I'm an inspiration, right? The fact that the primary marketing vehicle for our company is also creating that in people's lives. You could not, you know what I mean? Like there is no better way to market something. You know, there's no better audience than that which feels that way about you, right? So like, I just think that like in the social media driven world, the influencer led motion is a really capital efficient thing that when combined,
it's the future. It's the future.
Yeah,
Sales
exactly.
as we know it
But I
today.
think it's going to allow bootstrapping companies that couldn't be bootstrapped previously.
Yeah, 100%.
Because like so much of it was
100%.
VC plowed in to go to market, whatever. So like I'm looking forward to building this out, building it in public the whole way, and spreading the good word that this is possible. Right?
Yeah.
And it's fucking hard. Like, dude, I spend most of my time doing founder brand stuff and mind share, right? Like, not most of my time, but like I'm always thinking about like what would make a good post. Like after this, I'm gonna like write down a few things that I could post about that we talked about that like were interesting things that like you asked me, right? Like, yeah, but that won't stop the talented people from doing it. The fact that it's difficult, it's just a difficult nut to crack. It took me a year to like really crack it. In my experience, that's like kind of around the time you can expect from, I'm going to figure this out and fully dedicate myself to it for 12 months to like, this is serving me in a major way. And like, I will tell you now, this is serving me more than anything else that anyone is doing in my company by 10x. It's crazy, you know? So yeah, that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about the journey and publicizing the journey and however I can, and spreading. Like, I just think bootstrapping is so much better than the position people put themselves in with investor capital. Like, I just want to like spread the word that it is possible with this new world in a way that, you know, you can bootstrap companies you never could before. You know?
True. Thank you so much, Adam Robinson, for the people at home looking, watching, listening, whatever. He's got a YouTube channel. He's got LinkedIn. Go follow him. And of course, for us, go hit that subscribe button and other notifications. I'm still not 100% good at this, but thank you so much for you guys listening at home. And we'll be back very soon. Bye-bye.
Take care.